Hello everyone, my name is Robert, but you can call me Angela Murkrow, and welcome to my adventure guide. In this video, we're getting down and dirty with our second legendary ground-type Pokémon, Landorus. Landorus is available naturally in either version of the game, so players won't need to jump through any additional hoops to find him, but once Landorus is unearthed, what do you need to know? As always, we're going to start with a little background on the legendary Pokémon, walk through the moves, stats, and ability. After the foundation has been laid, I can tell you what Pokémon would offer the best damage output, support, and defense, and wrap it up with Pokémon that you should avoid. Sound good? Let's begin! Landorus, a ground and flying type Pokémon. Landorus is weak to water and 4 times weak to ice, resistant to fighting, poison, and bug, and immune to ground and electric. We'll be facing off against Landorus in his incarnate form, not his Therian form, so you're going to be up against the ability Sand Force. This gives a 33% boost to Landorus' rock, ground, and steel type attacks while in a sandstorm. So I got good and bad news for you. Good news, Landorus doesn't have any steel type attacks. Bad news, Landorus has 3 ground type attacks and 1 rock type. Even worse, if used as max rockfall, Landorus will be able to set up sandstorm. And the bad news just keeps on rolling considering the amount of spread damage Landorus can inflict with bulldoze, earthquake, and rock slide. But then again, if you're familiar with the competitive scene, this isn't some earth-shattering revelation. Landorus has always been an offensive menace. Your entire team could easily be taken out by a poorly timed earthquake or rock slide. It may not be the most exciting role, but sometimes you just need a Pokémon that can reliably stay alive. So with that in mind, what Pokémon should we be on the lookout for? Generally, I like to start the section off by showcasing the rental Pokémon with the highest potential for damage output. But there is one group of Pokémon that is essential against Landorus, the Wide Guard Pokémon. I've highlighted these 5 Pokémon in previous videos, but if there was one legend that demanded their presence, it would be Landorus. Between Earthquake, Bulldoze, and Rock Slide, you'll be getting a lot of mileage out of Wide Guard, especially in the later part of the battle when Landorus starts attacking twice per turn. Of course, there will be times when Landorus will use a Max Move, Sand Tomb, or Focus Blast instead, but I think it's still worth risking 1 KO if it means possibly preventing 4. I especially want to highlight these Wide Guard Pokémon first because some of our best offensive options are the notoriously fragile Ice-type Pokémon. Before I get into my offensive recommendations, I want to remind everyone that you can find my damage calculation guidelines and a link to the Pokémon damage calculator in the description of these videos, just in case anyone is curious how I came to a number of these numbers. Starting off with a fairly standard Ice-type attack, we're going to take a quick look at Pokémon with Ice Beam. On the lower end of damage output, we have Pokémon like Wartortle and Dunsparce. Dunsparce can eke out just a smidge more damage than Wartortle. Plus, access to Serene Grace gives Dunsparce a 20% chance at freezing Landorus. Celio easily landing in 10th place for non-conditional damage output. Jinx with nearly 100 more points of damage takes 4th place with her Ice Beam. I still haven't found a way to accurately measure hit points for the legendary Pokémon in Dynamax Adventures, but this damage output from Jinx can be a reliable 2-hit KO. That is, if you and your teammates can keep Jinx alive. And then we have one of my favorite Pokémon, Porygon. Porygon has the ability Download, which will boost either its attack or special attack, depending on which of Landorus' defensive stats is lower. More often than not, Porygon will find its special attack getting a boost, however, there will be situations in which Landorus may have a higher special defense depending on natures and IVs. But remember that Download will activate anytime Porygon is sent out, so you may find other situations in which Porygon faints, and at some point during the battle with Landorus, he uses Max Quake and receives a boost to his special defense. Either situation will happen enough that it's worth noting that a boosted Porygon could deal 252 to 300 points of damage, but be prepared to set expectations closer to 172 to 204 points of damage. Moving on, we have a new move introduced in the Isle of Armor, Triple Axle. Out of the 226 rental Pokémon, only 4 have access to the move, and if you see one of these 4, then pick them up. Hitmontop has the lowest damage output among the 4, dealing just a little bit less than an Ice Beam from Celio. But honestly, damage output shares the spotlight with Hitmontop's utility. Access to Intimidate is a great way to start off this battle, and you can continue to bolster your team with coaching. Frostless has fairly equal physical and special attack stats, so choosing between Triple Axle and Frost Breath may vary from adventure to adventure, but assuming all things are equal, then Triple Axle is what put Frostlass in 5th. And sharing second, we have Sneasel and Cinccino. These two have equally impressive triple axles that can range between 336 and 408 points of damage. though make no mistake, these Pokemon are incredibly frail. This battle against Landorus can be a whole Hitmon family reunion if you're lucky enough. Hitmonlee on Wide Guard, Hitmontop with Triple Axle, and Hitmonchan can punch. 184 to 220 from Ice Punch is pretty good damage, but pales in comparison to previous Pokemon packing punches of 300 points or more. But hey, still pretty good. I have much less to say about Ice Fang. It could be found on Morpeko, Red Stripe Basculin, and Glalie. I wouldn't spend too much time worrying whether the Basculin silhouette you found has a red or blue stripe, because you would be much better off utilizing a water type attack from either fish thanks to the ability Adaptability. Icy Wind is also a great option. Don't expect immense damage output from this move, but being able to drop Landorus' speed stat with a 4 times effective attack is an excellent blend of support and offense. A number of these glass cannons are just barely slower than Landorus. With the base speed stat of 115, Starmie can likely outspeed Landorus and allow for another teammate or two to do so as well. However, that's not exactly going to help Abomasnow or Alolan Sandslash. Both have access to Avalanche, a move that doubles in power if the user was damaged by the target this turn. When there's so much spread damage going around, that makes the benefit fairly likely. At best, Abomasnow could be just as powerful as an Ice Beam from Jinx, or you could be hitting for the much less impressive 168 to 196. Sandslash? Well, I don't think Sandslash is going to be alive long enough to use a boosted Avalanche, but if the stars align, then expect a possible range of 352 to 420 points of damage. But we like our damage output to be a little bit less conditional. So instead, Sandslash should just feel lucky to hit for an unboosted 180 to 216 points of damage. Now, I don't want to get into the habit of listing every move of a certain type and every Pokemon that has it, but I think it is important here. More often than not, you'll find yourself adventuring with other members of the community who follow the unspoken rule, let the Pokemon with the super effective move Dynamax, and I think it's important to specifically Dynamax the Ice-type attacker when possible, not just because of the 4 times weakness. A Max Hailstorm can give you some control over the weather and keep Landorus from utilizing Sand Force. Hail also makes Weather Ball Pokemon more valuable as offensive options, notably Frostmoth, whose only access to an Ice-type move is the Hail-boosted Weather Ball. If you can thread that needle, then Frostmoth could possibly deal the most damage against Landorus with a range of 388 to 460 points of damage. Though, again, this is a little too conditional for our liking. But the real reason we want to set up Hail is so our Pokemon with Blizzard can bypass accuracy checks. But even with questionable accuracy, half the Blizzard users can feel confident dealing above 200 points of damage. With Cryogonal able to deal anywhere between 340 to 408 points of damage, don't underestimate the Snowflake, and that is not meant pejoratively. With the ability Levitate, Cryogonal can avoid any ground-type attack from Landorus, and hey, maybe it's worth setting up Reflect before your first Blizzard. Absol, Piloswine, and Dragonair can deal above 200 points of damage on a good day, but are more likely to see results in the 180s. Lickitung? Well, Lickitung is an option, I guess. And Barbaracle would actually be better off using Razor Shell. If none of these Pokemon appear to be available, then picking up a Water-type attacker is a fine alternative. You're not going to see a similar level of damage output as highlighted before, but Water Pokemon like Crawdaunt and Basculin can at least show a good effort, and it would be improper if I omitted the fact that both Pelipper and Kingler can deal significant damage. Kingler's Crabhammer is about as strong as an Ice Punch from Hitmonchan, and also, as long as Landorus doesn't do anything to the weather, then a Drizzle-boosted Weather Ball from Pelipper can deal 236 to 278 points of damage. But even with that damage output, I still think it's best for these Pokemon to focus on Wide Guard. But hey, taking a supportive role has always been my preferred playstyle. Even if it's not yours, hopefully someone on your team doesn't mind adopting the role. So what kind of support should we be on the lookout for? Well, if you can't guarantee hail, then it may be a good idea to look for other weather setters, and primarily ones for rain. This will boost your team's water-type Pokemon looking to deal extra damage, and hopefully allow you to keep Landorus and Sandforce in check. Yes, the Pokemon with Drizzle work well here, however, it's more of a one-and-done thing. Since we don't really know when or if Landorus will set up a Sandstorm, we may want some more controller for weather with Pokemon like Acelgor, Sigilyph, and Shiinotic. Acelgor and Sigilyph both have to be mindful of Rock Slide, but can shrug off most other attacks from Landorus, but Shiinotic may be your best bet here. Great defensive typing against Landorus, Strength Sap can keep you alive and drop Landorus' monstrous attack, or use a rain-boosted Weather Ball. Hopefully you'll know what's best to use in whatever situation you're in. Now generally, I wouldn't recommend setting up Sun, especially given our limited pool of offensive Pokemon, but there will be times when Cherim would make an excellent addition to the team. Remember that Flower Gift can boost your team's attack and special defense while in the sun, but Cherrim doesn't have to use Sunny Day to pull its weight. Weather Ball makes it versatile in rain and hail, but before all of that, you might as well start off by using Worry Seed. That way, even if a sandstorm is active, the only one losing sleep over it is Landorus. You could also look out for a Gourgeist or Credilli if you want other options for suppressing Sandforce. Like Cherrim, Gourgeist also has access to Worry Seed. For newer players, this replaces the target's ability with Insomnia, and Credilli, on the other hand, has access to Gastro Acid and could just flat out shut off Sandforce. Plus, any of these three would be acceptable options for Dynamax. Most players prefer the Pokemon with super effective moves to Dynamax, but against Landorus, make an exception for Max Overgrowth. This will set up grassy terrain. Or, if you're able to find them, pick up Vileplume or Bellossom. Grassy terrain may be your best supportive option against Landorus, considering it halves the power of moves like Bulldoze and Earthquake. Even better, Landorus is a flying type and won't benefit from the incremental life gain. Some real quick mentions: Landorus attacks primarily with his physical attack, and there are a number of decent Pokemon with either Coaching or Reflect. We highlighted Hitmontop earlier for its access to Triple Axle and Intimidate, though the other Coaching Pokemon can't quite compete with Hitmontop's versatility. Poliwrath is fine, and Pangoro or Machoke are acceptable. But remember, Landorus can always start his turn by resetting any stat changes. However, that won't take away your screens. Light Screen isn't too important here unless you're concerned about Focus Blast. Reflect will be just fine in most cases, and most of those Pokemon come with other decent utility. If I were to highlight one, then it might be Trevenant. Trick Room might be worth using first so you can get maximum value out of Reflect on the following turn. Plus, Trevenant's type combination means it will likely stick around no matter what Landorus throws at it. And honestly, against a hyper-offensive Pokemon like Landorus, you will need someone to be the Gloria Gainer of the team and say, "I will survive." It's important to stress that Pokemon aren't being highlighted for their damage output here, but for their ability to shrug off most attacks in this battle. Most of these Pokemon would be Bug or Grass-type Pokemon, which resist Ground-type moves. Bug will also resist a Focus Blast from Landorus, or you could use a Flying-type Pokemon or one with Levitate and find yourself immune to those 3 Ground-type attacks. However, remember that most Bug and Flying-type Pokemon will easily get crushed by Rock Slide, so whether or not they're worth the risk is up to you. There's relatively little to steer you away from here outside of bad type matchups. You'll definitely want to stay away from most Fire, Electric, Poison, Rock, or Steel-type Pokemon. Just try to avoid being an easy KO against Landorus. And then there are 2 abilities that might be best to avoid. First, Fracture and its ability Rivalry. This one's a little bit more conditional. Rivalry will boost the power of a move by 25% if the user and the target have the same gender, and reduce the power if the user and the target have different genders. Landorus is one of the only gendered legendary Pokemon. A male Fracture will get this boost, while a female Fracture will actually deal less damage. And we're going to wrap this up with Sandaconda and its ability Sandspit, which will activate a Sandstorm anytime Sandaconda is hit by an attack. Considering you'll be up against 3 different sources of spread damage, and you're giving Landorus easy access to Sandforce, put simply, just don't. And that's Landorus. Overall, fairly difficult compared to other available legendary Pokemon. Landorus isn't exactly the hardest legendary Pokemon in Dynamax Adventures, but he does require a considerable amount of attention when assembling a team. If there's a Pokemon that you would like to recommend against Landorus, then let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, then please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at AngelaMercro so you can be notified when the next video goes up. And if you'd like, you can support me on Ko-fi /AngelaMercro. And I'd like to thank James Allen for use of their music, Kayla Williams for her artwork, and Nick Kelke for his audio and technical support. If you donate to my Ko-fi, then you could also see your name or Twitter handle here. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Angela Mercro, and I'll catch you next time.